I was just saying that a lot of times people want to share their stories, but everyone has a story, and we don't usually use this platform to just talk about what's happened in our own situation because there's so much drama. But Lizzie, here she is. Here's one of them. So Lizzie and Deana, I met, let me see, I met them. I was on their podcast about surviving toxic relationships. And right before, oh, wait, let me try to get them on. We're gonna see if I can do both of them on here. Oh, there's one. Hi, Deana. Let me see if I could get Lizzie on here. I don't know what happened, but I was just saying we don't usually just talk about people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was on your podcast and we were chatting a bit about your background, I thought, this is insane. This is just beyond. And so I thought, thanks for hosting me, but you need to come on and talk about your background, and I don't want to give it away. I'm trying to get Lizzie on here, but I can't seem to do it. Let me try it one more time because I don't want to start if we can get her on.
Yeah, let me quickly message her and just let her know.
Oh, she's here. She's here.
Oh,
Yay.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, it worked. Okay, and
Yes.
nobody's getting booted off. I'm so happy to see both of you. I was just saying that I met you two doing your podcast. What was it, like a month or two ago? And
Almost
and
2 months. Yeah.
yeah, and your stories were insane, and I thought we have to talk about it. So, because it is so unusual, and I think women in particular, when they get out of an abusive relationship and see their ex getting involved with someone else, think, I should warn that person, but it doesn't always end up well. So I'm not going to say anything else, but I don't know which of you wants to just tell us who you are and let's hear what happened, how you came together.
Well, Deana, go ahead.
all right. Well, so we were married to the same toxic narcissist, not at the same time. And I was married to him first for 27 years, and then Lizzie married him second. And just like you said, Lisa, when they were courting and dating and, super serious, my daughter told me, Mom, you have to tell this lady that he's dating. She's so nice. I can tell she's a really good woman. And I just couldn't. I just said, she's going to think I'm crazy. It's going to create tension between us. And, you guys are going to she's going to be your stepmom, even though the kids were grown, but still, she was going to be in the family. So I never did. And of course, 6 years later, when we did become friends, I felt really guilty about that fact.
Okay, so back it up or slow it down. How did you become friends?
Yeah, well, that's crazy too. So basically, after 6 years of her enduring what I endured for 27, and she realized this guy is not okay. My son reached out and said, Mom, really, you need to call Lizzie because she's leaving dad. And, I think it's going to be super helpful if she understands why he's like he is, a little bit more of that story. And he's like, just please reach out. So I did. I reached out and we sat for hours and just talked about everything because the way he was acting with her was just kind of weird and mysterious and strange. And she just didn't get it, but she was still like, I can't do this anymore. Right, Lizzie? And she was packing.
Well, I was going to say that, I'd already been married 14 years and in a very abusive relationship. So it's like when you've been there once, you just don't have the tolerance, hopefully, at that point to go through anything again. And I thought we had a really good marriage, but I guess I didn't, as I was told, I wasn't always present because there probably was red flags that I didn't see. And
Nobody sees red flags.
No, and then, well, when he courted me, it was all about taking my boys to practice, sporting practices, grocery shopping. And when you've done it by yourself for 10 plus years, that's like a treat, I mean, it's just, you treasure that help. And then it was hard not to be wooed at that point. And so when 6 years later, I thought, what is going on? I got locked out of our phone accounts, credit card accounts. I mean, just weird things going on, and I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. And so finally he went on this like retreat to work on our marriage, and I was like, something's fishy. So my sister happened to be visiting, and we packed up and moved out. And because of his behavior, that's how I ended up calling her son, going, I just want you to know I left your dad. He's got some suicidal ideations, but something else is going on. And lo and behold, the first thing he said was, Lizzie, we're not surprised.
How
And
old,
he's
how
got
old
a
was
track
he at the
record.
time?
How old was your?
I'm gonna say it was maybe 25.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit older. He was
Yeah,
older.
the kids were older when because obviously I was with him for 27 years, and so the kids were grown, when we divorced. My youngest was just gotten out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm
And,
curious, in the interim, Lizzie, what had you heard when your ex-husband was courting you? What had you heard about Deana, like the ex-wife? Because we always assume it's the crazy ex-wife who's bitter and scorned and still wants me.
I think he kind of webbed a really interesting tale to the point that there was partial truth to it.
Mm-hmm.
He blamed himself for the relationship. He blamed himself to where it went. He admitted he had sent emails that he shouldn't have to other women and had some communication with them. And, so it was just enough to go, okay, well, you messed up. And 27 years is a long time for a person to go, we've kind of outgrown each other. I mean, I could see that too, because I've seen that a lot with other couples where infidelity wasn't even an issue. So it was easy to kind of piece it together. And, at that point, he said he was separated for 2 years. And then come to find out, he and Deana had barely been separated.
Mm-hmm.
We got married literally, what was it, probably like 2 weeks after the divorce was final, and I had no idea because I thought he was 2 years single. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
Wow.
then going back to the whole situation when Garrett, or Tina's son, said, um, if it's okay for me to give your information to my mom, she knows a lot about this guy, and she could really probably give you some words of encouragement of his behaviors and track record. And literally, by the time Deana called me, I think a few days later, we were nonstop on the phone. I think from that point forward, something beautiful kind of blossomed from the ugly, a best friendship that, you can relate with each other. I knew her kids. I knew, just a lot of the background, and kind of hearing the past of them not being separated that long before he met me, and literally married couple weeks after the divorce was final. I don't know. It was painful, but it was also a good way to kind of just go, okay, no more. But then as things began to move forward, and I went ahead with the divorce because there was just too many gaps in the whole story that I just couldn't quite pintail. But that's what red flags are all about. It's not necessarily that we can really see what's going on. It's just something in us is warning us that something is wrong. So even though he was begging for our relationship to be back together, he also admitted that he was talking to another woman. And at that point, I'm like, I had 14 years of just pure emotional hell with my first marriage. I don't need to go through this again. And if our relationship is meant to flourish, it'll have to start over without starting over, so to speak. But at that point, I was broken to the point I didn't trust him. And Deana gave me so much information on his past that I was going, some of the stuff just kind of makes more sense when Deana tells it versus when our ex did, who we call Rex. Um, so I just knew that I had to follow through with that divorce. And then I don't mean to talk over you, Dina, but then 5 days later, after the divorce was final, I went back to my house to get my things because I pretty much ran in the dead of night and just grabbed what I need when I left them
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt so uncomfortable. Like I had to protect myself. And even my sister said, I am so glad you're mad because this is not acceptable from a spouse. And so 5 days after the divorce, I went back and I found these cards and these envelopes with his name on them. And I thought they were my cards that I had given him because the writing looked just like mine.
Mm-hmm.
And something in me said, oh, open it up, because he wasn't there. So that was the first time I'd really been in by myself since I left. So I reached down, I pick up the cards, I open them, and I'm like, this is from another woman. And the interesting part was something in me instantaneously happened. Number one, I was meant to follow through with the divorce because he cried to the last minute that I don't divorce him, even up to the courthouse. Number two, she had no idea I existed. And then
This is number
three,
three. This is woman
number
number three.
this is woman number three, yes. And there was something in me that said, we're going to share our story to the world. But first, we had to find this woman. So I don't know if Deana wants to kind of carry off from there.
Yeah. So anyway, so of course now, of course, she and I are friends, and now this is our mission. We have to find this woman because we know that he married both of us quickly before we
Mm-hmm.
could figure out who he was. And we could tell, but even by the cards, that she was such a kind soul. And then we finally found her on Facebook, and we're like, oh, she is such a kind soul. People loved her. And we didn't see anything with him on the Facebook page. But what we found by the dates on the cards and letters is that they had been dating for almost a year while he was married to Lizzie. So he had a whole nother life she had 3 grown kids as well. She was very much his type, like us. And we just decided we had to find her because Lizzie was going through she was going to start a divorce. And we knew that once that was over, he was going to marry this girl because, again, by the time probably they were divorced, he would be with her right at a year. So we went nuts trying to find her and finally gave up because we couldn't get through on Facebook and, etc. And so finally, I just left a message in Facebook Messenger. Of course, we weren't friends, so it probably went somewhere weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I basically said, Lizzie and I just want you to know, if you find this, that we can tell that you are a really wonderful woman. And I don't know if you're still with our ex or not, but I'm pretty positive you had no idea he was married when you were dating him. And if you have any questions or if you have any concerns or doubts, we totally hold nothing against you because we know how good he is. So
Mm-hmm.
please reach out. And then I heard nothing at all for, I don't know, a couple months. And all of a sudden I get a phone call and it's her. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
my stomach drops because we had been like on this crazy hiatus, just obsessed with finding her. And here she is. And she calls up. And of course, she's got this confused, panicked sound in her voice.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you know why she waited 2 months? Like, did she
she
get the
didn't.
message?
No, because we were Facebook friends. It goes into some weird little chat area,
Yeah,
where, yeah, you have to almost dig for it. And so she said, I'm kind of confused. She said, and she started off with all this confusion. I said, well, you know who I am? And she said, yes, I know who you are. I know. And I said, okay, are you still with Rex? And she said, yes. And I said, okay. So really, Lizzie and I just wanted you to know that we hold nothing against you. We understand that he probably withheld all the information about or lied about her or put her in a bad light. And she said, wait, who is Lizzie? She had no idea Lizzie even existed, even though they lived like a town away, because his story was that he was with me.
Mm-hmm.
And were angry that that he divorced and he moved out of state, and they were angry about that, so they stopped talking to him, and that he had been single for 6 years, even though he had driven her by the house where Lizzie and he lived a couple of times. She even said to me, she said, do you mean that house where he took care of that cute little old lady and old man? That's Lizzie's house? That's his and Lizzie's house. They lived there together. He wasn't taking care of anybody.
Right.
That was
She's
just,
not a little cute little old lady.
she's not a cute little old lady, man. And
I will say also, we call her Jane, also did a background check on him. And for some reason, I never showed up. Just Deana and her 4 kids.
yeah, she did her due diligence before she even started dating him. So then she gets even more panicky and she said, do you mean this red coat that I'm wearing right now? It was not a gift from the little old lady? It's his wife's? And I was like, yeah, probably. I mean, I hadn't seen the exact quote, but I said there was no little lady. There's no. This was his wife, and so she's now freaking out because her son had gone on a motorcycle trip with Rex. They went on two motorcycles, took off out of state for several days, and of course,
Mhm.
her son was a child, but she was still terrified because she had a child that was harmed by her previous husband. So you can only imagine the terror in her voice. So, you know, immediately she wants to know, is he safe? Is this guy psycho, crazy? And I'm like, well, I mean, yes, but he's not going to hurt anybody. He's not going to hurt your child.
Mhm.
But she starts asking me question after question about Lizzie, and what about this trip? What about that seems strange? And what about, and so I was like, you got to call, you guys have to connect. And they did. And when they did, and I don't know how much time we have, Lisa. I don't want to
We
like,
we have time. Keep talking.
okay. Okay. So when they did connect, then she and Lizzie got to sit and just really, really, really connect the dots of vacations that, that they would go on together. And she's like, this gift he brought me when he went on this bike trip alone, was that really just on a lone trip? And Lizzie's like, no, we went on that bike trip together. And that was mine. And matter of fact, this motorcycle is mine as well. And I mean, it was crazy, right, Lizzie? I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, but the connecting the dots for her was incredible.
Yeah, what
It,
was
it
what
was,
was her demeanor? I mean, in learning this, we can imagine, but did she
there
believe
was
you?
yeah, well, that's just it. Well, she was in shock, definitely shock, disbelief, but not the disbelief that she said, the heck with you two. I don't
Hmm.
know what you two are talking about. Because to add to Deana's story of when she sent the Facebook Messenger, she sent it, I believe, on June 1st,
Hmm.
and she married him June 2nd. So
Yeah.
if she would have seen Deana's Facebook post that day, she would have known the truth. And so she actually, with deep grief, pieces of the puzzle were coming together for me. At the same time, I felt like chopped liver, so to speak, because I was like, this really stinks. Because I've been following him around for years,
Hmm.
almost 5 of our married years, while he was kind of moving up the ladder in his job. And so I wasn't even in a place that I had like deep rooted connections or family that I could lean on in that time. So it was a very traumatic, so to speak, moment, I think, for her and for me. I can't say I think it was.
Yeah, so
For
you had
me,
uprooted your life,
yeah,
physically uprooted your life.
yes, yeah.
And,
And I
and
had,
drained her 401k because she's in the teaching profession. He
Hmm.
drained her 401k and didn't touch his while they were traveling around. So just had
Oh, so Lizzie, you paid all the bills without your knowledge, maybe.
yeah, well, and then he was not paying my bills because he just was like, I'll take care of the bills. Well, okay, here again, woman single for 10 years, just trying to survive day in and day out. I was like, oh, this is nice, because he was such a charmer and he was so good that it was hard not to believe that he could really do a good job with finances, which is really important to me because my first marriage didn't have it either. So by the time I left, after 6 years, my sister helping me pack, I went to try to find just a little studio apartment. I was denied. He did not pay any of my credit cards. So my credit not just tanked a little bit, I looked pitiful. So here I am, no money. My sister still talks about it to today that he just left like $20 on the cabinet and said, here, this is for your weekend with your sister. And at that point, I was like, what? There should be more than that. But the truth of the matter was, he took it all himself and was hiding it elsewhere. And so, yes. So going back to Jane, she believed us, which was shocking, absolutely shocking. And she immediately, the next day, met with her lawyer, which was a Sunday, so she knew people. She met
Hmm.
with her lawyer, filed an annulment for fraud and a restraining order. And when he pulled up in the driveway with her son, there was policemen lined up. His car was packed. And she told him, or because the police didn't let her out of the house, but the police told him, "You've got to go. Here's your restraining order. Here's your car. Here's your keys. Goodbye." And then the one of the things that he said, that he knew that she must have talked to me. He said, "Well, you never heard my side of the story." And as Deana and I talk about many times, what side is there? You lied, you manipulated, you cheated,
And
you hurt.
she didn't even know that there was a second wife.
No, no. Isn't that just, and someone who can just keep going like that is normal behavior, and that, oh, well, you didn't hear my side of the story. Oh, yeah, that's a really low blow if you ask me. But needless to say, he drove off acting like the victim, and then he was going to try to stay in that same area, and he tried calling her pastor, everybody else, to try to slink his way back in, and everybody just said, "We don't want you here in this town.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go." And it's a small southern type of town, they got a little different mentality than if you were in LA or San Diego or anywhere like that. So when she got to the point where she was like, "Hey, Lizzie, let's call his job," because he worked as a resource officer at a school system. And she's like, "He should not be doing that. He should not." And I'm like, "I agree, but I've been in survival mode. What does it matter when you're trying to survive and figure out what the
Right.
heck is going on?" And so when she told him, "I'm calling your boss," and she did try calling him, but she didn't get an answer. When he realized that she was serious, he ran to be with his sisters. And then, Deana, you want to finish what happened? And
Oh, he immediately married one of his sister's friends.
So this is number 4.
yes,
Number 4.
Well, but before he did that, what happened with Jane? Like, have you guys stayed in touch with Jane, the number 3?
No, we wanted to. We really did. We really wanted to make this like the, the Three Musketeers kind of
Yeah.
thing. But, I think that there was just so much shame and pain around it that I think everybody processes these things different, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so for us, we felt empowered and healed by bonding together in that sisterhood. But for her, I think it was just a constant reminder of, what had happened, because she really internalized this and felt like it was her fault, which is such a shame, because we did everything we could to really help her understand that this guy is a con artist. He's a predator. He's so good. He makes you believe anything he wants you to believe, and he learns and studies you so quickly that he literally just knows how to shift everything so that he's the perfect guy and to hide it all. So but we couldn't really get through, so I think unfortunately that one didn't. But she did, before she kind of went on her own way, she did contact wife number 4. She found
Yeah.
her and she contacted her, and she did the same thing that we did. She tried to convince her that, hey, you need to hear the story. You need to understand who you're with. And unfortunately, wife number 4 just said, I heard that you guys are psycho. I heard that you went around to all these places in his small town and tried to get him fired. And you said all these things and you did all these things. And, you guys can just jump off a bridge.
All 3 ex-wives.
Yep.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep,
Lizzie, I think it's interesting how you said when he was kind of wooing you, one of the things that drew you to him was, I imagine, that you thought he was so honest because
yeah,
he acknowledged how he was at fault, which is a little bit different than we'd expect. It's making me think of someone who's like a master covert manipulator.
yes,
Because it's
yes,
like, I'm going to come in and look like I'm taking accountability and laying my cards on the table, admitting what I did wrong, that I'm a flawed human being. And so it
yep,
got you to trust him more because you're thinking, well, who would, if someone weren't honest, why would they reveal something about themselves that would make me think, okay, if this guy's a cheater, I don't want to get involved. But to me, it makes me think it's almost like a test. And so
yeah,
you coming out of, whatever was in the past, thinking, oh, well, my ex-husband would never be this honest. This guy seems so honest. So here's
yeah,
someone that I could probably trust, as well as that, like you said, you had these kids and he started helping and being on your own for so long. It seemed like a relief. Like you'd think this is a great
mhm,
guy, and he's honest.
yeah. It it's a beautiful picture, isn't it? I mean, it's just, That's how they are. They immerse themselves into you. They are so, I mean, really good ones, especially the really good predators. I mean, sometimes we can see someone and we go, ew, that's a creepy guy.
Yeah.
But then you have some that just come in like Casanova and just, woo you in a way that you need to be wooed. Not
Like humble.
necessarily,
It sounds like he
yeah,
was very humble.
yes. And my dad, who's a very discerning man, loved him because he would come and spend Friday afternoons with them and they'd hang out, they would talk, they'd go out to lunch. And, I thought that was a good litmus too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nobody had like any qualms about him or are you sure? Well, like everybody was like, what a great guy. What a
Mm.
great guy.
Well, I imagine
And so,
also your dad, like someone in your own family. I know for my dad, I look up to my dad. I trust my dad's judgment that to think, okay, it's not just me, like my parents approve
mhm,
and he's close with my dad. So of course, like you said, he passed the litmus test.
yeah.
How did your dad respond? Because I'm thinking of the phrase betrayal trauma.
You know, I'm kind of thankful, but my dad had passed away right soon before that happened.
Oh
I
no.
think my dad and I were really, really close, and he was the one that would hold me the most through my first marriage.
Hmm.
And I mean, if there's anybody on this planet that I think I still have my moments of grief, it's the loss of his life. But I don't want to see my parents suffer.
Yeah.
But I think it would have really been hard for him, even though people were like, your dad was made stronger than that. But I think it was the fact too that I'd been there twice, not just once. And this
Yeah.
one he thought, oh, this is a really good guy. And he married us because my dad was a pastor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh.
him and my brother.
Yeah.
How do you,
I mean, you think about what it's like for a parent whose child is involved in an unhealthy relationship and the pain. And I know from what we've all been through and a lot of people in our community have been through, it's like the most heartbreaking thought is that our child would end up in a similar or worse situation because we want to protect our kids from people like this.
absolutely. And the fact that they can be so good at it is really mind boggling. And so I think, Deana, one of our things that we both say is if you have ex-wives come into you, you might want to heed those warnings because, first of all, for most ex-wives, it takes a lot of guts unless they're full of hate and anger and they just want to be destructive. It takes a lot of guts to come to another person and say, hey, I just want to share a few things with you. You decide to continue to see them, that's fine. Especially if it's laid heavy on your heart, because with me and Jane and Deana, like Deana and I had this deep sense of we gotta find her to the point it was like we were crazy. I know I
Like a
was crazy.
compulsion to get
Yeah,
the truth out.
yeah.
You,
And I
you know what
didn't
I
have
think is
that with wife four, so
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to talk a little more about that. But first, I'm thinking, Deana, with you, what's so interesting is that when your ex-husband got involved with Lizzie, you stayed away and I don't want to say the word respected, but you just stayed out of it. But something in you, a lot of people are angry at their ex's future partners. They're like, how stupid, what a terrible person they are. But you were the opposite. Both of you, even with Jane, were like, I know you must be a good person. Where does that come from? I mean, because you're different than a lot of people would be.
Well,
What,
remember 27 years, and he was definitely, amongst everything else, he was narcissism and gaslighting and financial abuse and all of it. But he was also a sex addict. And so for him to actually have a relationship with a woman, he's going to choose a really good woman. He's
mm,
going to somebody to make it look like he's a great guy.
yeah.
He's got this wonderful woman. Lizzie's a teacher. She's a professional. She loves kids. She's got 4 boys. They're wonderful kids. It's like they create this whole facade and you're part of it. And you have no idea you're part of it. So I was pretty positive at the very beginning that she was a great person. But then obviously my kids got to know her.
That's what I was
And they,
going to ask about, because there
yeah,
were those years where you were co-parenting and
yeah, and
Lizzie was
yeah, they were adults, so we weren't actually co-parenting because they were all adults when we divorced.
okay,
But
but still, like, imagine, your kids got to
yeah,
know Lizzie.
yeah, they would go visit. And of course, one thing Rex also did was to move. He moved constantly, and
Oh,
so
really?
oh yeah, like that's another thing that's always a big red flag. Like, oh,
Mm.
I don't talk to kids or my family or certain the people that are closest that would know things about them. They
Mm.
tend to move, and maybe they'll just call them here and there, but they don't seem to be super close to anybody, and so they just kind of glue to you and the new family. But my kids would tell me, Mom, she's a really wonderful lady. And they could tell right away. They said he doesn't treat her well. He doesn't treat her right, which of course I knew because, that's just who he was. But again, I just thought, well, and you kind of do think that, right? You're like, well, maybe he's just going to be that way with me. Maybe he won't be that way with somebody else. Maybe she knows how to hold him accountable better, or, so that you just kind of go through that. And I didn't want to, throw any stones, so to speak, but um it kind of worked out. We kind of laugh about it because we're like, he gave us both a best friend, and we're so grateful for that, part, just giving both of us validation
Yeah.
that us, because I know so many ladies that follow us, one of their biggest questions, and sometimes for years, is, well, maybe it was me, or maybe it was partially me, because they make you crazy. So the things that you do, of course, are reactive abuse, but they can make you feel like you're nuts because you're not the same person that you normally are when you're with somebody like this.
Hmm.
You know?
Well, luckily you guys had each other to to check in with
Yeah,
after the
yeah.
fact, but still. So
Mhm.
now can you tell people what you guys do together? It's not like you're just best friends.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, it was actually before woman number 4 that Lizzie kind of almost grabbed me by the ear and said, "We're telling our story. Like, we are telling our story to you." Or she basically said, "I'm telling my story and you're coming with me." That's how she put
That's what I would
it.
say.
Yeah, because just watching I mean, 4 families. I mean, every woman that he found had these families, and these wonderful people around them, and wonderful communities, and you just watched 4 families, and that doesn't include all the women that he's seeing on the side and
Right.
getting
And
groceries.
even before you, Deana, too.
And exactly before
The
me
word
too.
I'm thinking is parasite. They just glom on. He just glommed on to different
Mhm.
people who made him look good, so he could feel like that appearance, because we know how much appearances matter. He's
Yes.
successful. He's surrounded by beautiful
Mhm.
women and their children and family and community, and then doesn't work out, just move somewhere else and pick a new one.
Exactly. And financially, think about that. I mean, I think that's the part that Lizzie and I really struggle with, because here we are, like, middle age, and we're left absolutely destitute.
Yeah.
And so just that, and he had only been with, Jane for what, less than a year, and already I think they bought a boat, and he already
Mm.
had a
Well,
lot of her
Jane bought the boat.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Jane bought the boat. There you go.
Oh my God. So also, what happened with wife number 4? What's the story?
Well, the funny thing is, again, she told us to jump off a bridge when we tried to warn her. And then 2 years later, she must have just gone crazy. She found my daughter's phone number. She got on my Facebook. She got on Lizzie's Facebook, and she apologized. She tried to get a hold of more of my children, but couldn't find them. And she just did this huge post, in Facebook Messenger, like, "I am so sorry. I was so wrong. Now I understand why the kids won't talk to him. I'm furious." And she said that she got on his phone and
Hmm.
found talking to 27 different women, trying to not like get married, because he already had that arrangement, right? He already had
Hmm.
his little comfy place, but he just liked illicit encounters. So he
Yeah.
was on 27 different women, and some of them he was telling them, like, one of them, the husband found out, and the
Hmm.
husband was furious, and he just said, "Well, you're not treating your woman right, and if you don't start treating her right, I'm going to take her away from you." I mean, this is the crazy making. And so we were just thrilled because we were like, oh my gosh, thank God, like she's gonna get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, we're here for you, and we were listening to her. And then it took maybe, I don't know, maybe a few weeks, I think. And all of a sudden we noticed that she was not answering when we asked how she was. She was not saying anything. And, you're looking at her Facebook and they're not separated. So she decided to stay after all of that. And
Mm.
that's the last we heard, and that was a few years ago. So, but again, he's that good. He will sob and cry. He will, basically flying monkeys, where he gets all your friends and family, or your pastor, if you're a faith person, and they will call you and they will tell you how sorry he is, and that he's a good man. He's just
Mm.
struggles. He's got problems. He wants to do better. And I can't do better without you. I can't live without you. He threatens to commit suicide. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he will go to no end to get you back. And after a while, you wear down because you really do believe that people can change and they can get better, and so we understand. We hold no judgment whatsoever because we understand how powerful. I mean, I went back to him. I left him 9 times in that
Mm.
27, and I went back every single time except for the last time. And
That's the average. The average is it takes 7 to 9 times to get out of one of these relationships.
yes, yes, and thank God that they put that statistic, because you feel like, what is wrong with me? Like, what? But
Your brain has been affected.
yeah, it's like you're in a cult. It's
Yeah.
just like being, like, you are completely brainwashed. You know that they're this person. You know there's something wrong, but there's so many different components, like having children, having a family. If you're a person of faith, you believe that God will help you, and he will, if you do all the right things, like he will heal this person. All your friends and family are telling you how wonderful this person is. They
You
don't
know,
see the
that's so interesting because people are telling you what a good person is. So a good person is someone who lies, cheats, steals, does everything like that. Then if that's good, what's bad? Like you think about what our society is kind of growing us for. Like this is what a good person does. So you can't expect more. You can't expect anything better. This is acceptable behavior.
And I
Well,
think
and
there's, oh, sorry, Lizzie. I think there's this belief out there that you can be a good person in your core, in your heart, and just be stuck in these bad habits. I'm not saying I don't believe that. I
Mhm.
think there are good people that are stuck in bad habits, but there's a huge difference between those people and the ones that literally take a wrecking ball and destroy, your all their relationships.
Or what about accountability? Like maybe a good person takes accountability and works on changing those habits, not just like, oh, I did it, forget about it.
Exactly. And that's another thing, is that they will go and they will get accountability, and they will, go talk to a therapist, or they'll do those things. But the red flag is only until they get you back.
Right.
Only until dot dot dot. And then they're right back to themselves. And also, they do not come to you with a broken heart and all these apologies and all these sad feelings of wanting to change until they're caught, you
Right.
know? So a good person's going to say, I can't believe I did this to you. I feel like a total jerk. I can't even sleep at night. I have to get it off my chest. And I'm sending myself to help. That's what a good
Right.
person that's caught in something bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
well said.
So I was going to say, so people are tell people what you're doing now. So you started telling your story and what else? Like, because that's how I met you.
Go ahead, Lizzie. I already railroaded you.
No, you didn't. Actually, this I was going to say, go ahead, Deana. Well, we've had a podcast for a year and a half. It used to be called the Matadora's No More Bull podcast, but we rebranded to Surviving Toxic Relationships with the Matadoras, because we're really passionate about the image of a matadora who stands alone in a ring and is surrounded by the support system facing their bull. And all they have is their little red muleta, and yeah, come at me, kind of thing. And it's pretty much knowing and having the wisdom to be able to stand firm in these types of relationships, and whatever their bull is. We have a heart and a desire to not only I'm very passionate about educating people of what toxic relationships are. A lot of people will say, well, I'm not in a toxic relationship. I'm fine and happy, but I'll share the information with others. Whereas then I'm like, you either know a person who's abusive, you will be in an abusive relationship, or you will be the person in the abusive relationship. I forgot. I know there's the three, and all of a sudden I went blank what I said, but I one of the stories I say is that I have a friend who was emotionally abused by her husband, and she texted me. She goes, "Oh, I found a place to live," because she knew it was that bad. She, for in the beginning, would say, if I leave, I'm going to take this. If I leave, I'm going to take that. And then her dialogue changed to, when I leave, I'm going to take this. When I leave. And so she found a place to live. She texted me about it. She said it was really close to where I lived, which was perfect because my son and her son were good friends. And that night he killed her and then took his life. And I look back now and I think the only thing I said was, thank you for keeping me in the loop. I'll be praying for you. Keep me updated. And if I had known and I had seen the red flags, even after coming out of my own abusive relationship, because I was in that single parenthood point of my life, I didn't know the warning signs. I didn't know that their dialogue that, we need to have with our friends if they're in these situations. So I'm really passionate about educating people that not necessarily in it, because it seems like people that are in it aren't the ones necessarily listening right now. It's
One
usually
in
the
two
people
people,
out of
one
it.
in two
Yeah,
people in those relationships have no idea that they're
yeah,
being abused, because we always
yeah,
think physical, only physical,
right. Yeah.
but it's one in
And
two
so,
people.
and that's what's amazing. It's like, no, we all need to be educated in the area of toxic relationships, because that could be your sister, that could be your child that's in this situation. And if you have no idea what it looks like, you could be part of that, your child could be a part of that statistic.
Yeah.
Whereas then you could have said, nope, you're not going back to that house. I'm coming by to pick you up, and we'll figure a way to get your stuff when he's not there and it's safe. Because that's number one, safety. Your stuff means nothing. And in a blink of an eye, two young boys lost both parents because dad shot mom and then took his own life. And then recently, her oldest son passed away from complications of diabetes. And I can't help but say that's part of the residual effect of loss.
Mm-hmm.
That even years down the road, because her death was in 2010 and he passed away in 2024. So I can't help but look back and go, if there was education, we could have prevented some of this. So that's my first. So I'll always go on that spiel. But we also have a passion just to reach the few that do listen, that are in it. And then the support really comes from people that have come out of it because they get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
mean,
my background's in education also, so I'm completely on the same page. And I know that domestic violence does affect 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men on average. And every event I go to, when I tell people what I do for a living, and Chris and I only deal with really high conflict, the craziest cases, all of them domestic violence. Always, 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 somebody will say, that's me or someone that I love.
yeah.
yeah. Yes, exactly. And luckily and thankfully, there's so much more awareness now out there. There's, you can't go anywhere without seeing something on narcissism on YouTube or anywhere else. But, like Lizzie said, and like you said, people just don't understand what abuse looks like and feels like, because we're still going back to the old definition of abuse. Emotional abuse, financial abuse, covert narcissism, the quiet, sneaky kind, like we dealt with. I didn't know I was being abused. I could not have told you that. I just believed that I was with somebody that just had a messed up childhood. And that's another thing, is we start to feel bad for them because they had a bad childhood, and they'll tell you, they'll make sure you know that story. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're there to kind of be their savior. And of course, if you're dysfunctional because you weren't raised with the model of a good marriage and a good relationship,
And how many of us have been raised with the perfect?
oh, exactly. So Anyway, so the point is that Lizzie and I, we started a podcast. Gosh, it's been going on 2 years. And we also started a YouTube channel, all under Surviving Toxic Relationships. We have a public Facebook under the same name. We have a private Facebook for women who don't want to, be in the limelight. And in the future, we've already been to a book conference. We will be writing a book in the future. And I think we've very much talked about having some groups too for women, just a place where women can come, and every week we have a topic and they can be safe and they can talk about what they've been through and relate to each other, because that fog is so thick. Like, it's really difficult, like you said, to really realize that you are being abused and that this won't change. And I think that's the hardest part, is that we just want to believe this person is capable of change. And it's not like they're abusive every single day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I would catch him every 2 years in some weird sexual stuff.
Yep.
In the meantime, he just was always in a bad mood, it seemed like. I mean, he would swing from a good mood and everything was good. The kids were happy. But it got to the point where, they'd hear the garage door come open up and they would all run to their rooms. So you never knew what kind of mood he was going to be in. He was just
Mm-hmm.
irritable. He was very critical and he would just kind of rage, but he never hit anybody. He never did things like that. So it was like so confusing to say, I'm in an abusive relationship, because really all I knew is that I was just unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to help this person who supposedly wept himself to sleep, wanting to change and
Mm-hmm.
wanting better. And then when you would try to leave, they just go crazy and they just can't live without you, and they're literally going to off themselves. So it's very confusing. It's very confusing. Oh, so glad I'm
Yeah.
out of that.
No, I know. And so relatable to me. A lot of what you said is very similar to some of the stuff I experienced in terms of them saying they're so sorry and they're just not. And what you were saying about people having hope and thinking it's going to get better. I think also people need education to realize that this is not acceptable, that there
Yeah.
are healthy relationships, but we're not educated about them.
Well, yeah, and you never hear anybody talk about their wonderful relationship. I mean, you just don't hear that.
But we should be. We should
We
be.
should be, because they're, I have a husband now. It's been 13 years, and we're every single day of my last 13 years has been heaven. Every
Yeah.
single day. And that does exist, but I didn't I didn't grow up in a family like that. Everybody in my family was pretty crazy and there was divorce everywhere. I didn't even know it existed. I didn't even know it was possible. So again, like, it's just like the news. You're not going to hear people come on the news and tell you all the wonderful things that are happening in the world. People complain and complain. And so you just get this worldview, that's how it is. So we just need to do a better job letting people know that there are good humans out there, just like you, who know how to love, and they aren't psycho.
Yep. Yeah,
And
mine just walked in. The male half of been there, got out. Yeah, Chris. So, and we've been together more than 10 years too. That was what that little shuffling was before his dog ran in.
Love it. I'm happy
Yeah.
for you, Lisa. Yes. And it does show, and like for me, I'm happy being single.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's like finding, you got to first walk through the healing portion after you leave. And that is probably the hardest part. And then whatever is in your reinvention, whether it's another relationship that's healthy and flourishing, or you're just enjoying the single life, it's finding that joy again after the darkness, I think, is the key to keep going, because it will come. It will come. Healing just takes time.
I know.
It's not.
Peace is the best, isn't it? To find that peace after. And there
Yes.
definitely can be peace, but you need support along the way.
Yes.
yeah, well, while you're healing is kind of the really difficult in between part. You get out of this relationship, and at first it's like euphoric, right? Because nobody's harassing you anymore. Then you feel lonely and you feel lost, and
From
then
surviving domestic violence.
maybe they're still trying to get you back, and they're telling you all these things. And the further you get away, the more you kind of forget, how awful it was. And You remember the good times. Because again, any relationship, even if they beat the tar out of you, there's going to be good times. And that's another reason it's confusing.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part. And you just really have to stay steadfast. And you have to understand that there's going to be a grieving in between where you are healing and you are finding yourself again and you feel completely lost, probably and alone, but you have to attach yourself to a new healthy, even if it's one or two people. So,
Yeah.
and you'll get there, and the peace and when you come out of that fog and you see your life now and you're like, how did I put up with that? How did I not really see that life could be so much better? But
I know.
you
How many
can.
people have asked you guys, like, wow, you look so healthy. You look so much younger. You look so much better. I feel like that happens a lot when we get out of these relationships.
Oh yeah. And I one thing to add on the healing, I always think of healing. The healing phase is like the teenage phase. It's just awkward. It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's just not straightforward. It's give yourself grace if you're there, because
Yep.
you'll get there. Yeah.
Yep. The bumpy ride, but you can
Yes.
do it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys
Thank
so much. Remind people the name of your podcast just in case.
Surviving Toxic Relationships podcast. And again, YouTube as well if you prefer videos, Surviving Toxic Relationships. We do have an Instagram account under the Matadoras. We just have not. We need to actually go back and completely rebrand it and rebuild it back up. We haven't been on TikTok or Instagram as of late because we just kind of got overwhelmed trying to do everything we were doing. But we will go back and rebrand. But for now, those are the two big ones: YouTube, podcast, and if anybody wants to be in a Facebook group, then just reach out to us.
Well,
Oh, and
thank you guys so much.
yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you, Lisa. Before we hang up, I wanted to
Yep.
tell you, and I feel like it's kind of cool to say it live or recorded.
Yeah.
My son, right after we recorded our podcast, I sent it to him after it was edited, and he just was like, "Mom, it was so good to hear her words and what she had to say and the wisdom." And anyway, so thank you for what you do, because it
Oh,
really
you're
does
welcome.
help families.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
so
So
glad.
thank you.
Good.
Yes.
My pleasure. Well, this will not be our last public conversation.
Hope not.
No.
Ditto. See you
All right.
soon.
Yes. See you
Thanks.
soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.